Oseo.
Oseo.
Cherokee greeting. Wave the great feather for the good of it. The main event this past week was the eclipse of the sun. And so for that I've given this theme, actually a title, the Bipolar Solar Eclipse. And I'm going to start right off with this. Mexico, that's how we say it, Mexico. Mexico is the patron goddess of the Mexica, so we call her Mexica, like that. Much later, these people, they're actually Nahua people, they were called the Aztecs. The Aztec deities, there were many of them, very similar to Egypt, are the short form of certain qualities that could be moved from one figuration to another. In English, that's called transposon. Transposon meaning that this element or this quality can move from one matrix to another matrix. It's also said to be the case in the world of DNA and chromosomes. Qualities, even though shapeless, can take on various disguises. So to the Aztecs, we'll use that name, the sacred was qualified. That is, the sacred can be one thing and only one. It was shaded and made iridescent by these qualities. Then this shadings could be treated as detachable and then symbolized in ceremonial regalia. So you can look over here. This is an Aztec in ceremonial regalia with these symbols. You could say this is the eagle, and the eagle, then he has an egg-shaped shield there with the letter G on it, which means the seed of the universe, the seed of all life. So here we have this illustration of him, the Aztec, we're saying. Now, back to me. The qualities of all things were of the essence. No matter how dramatic the object is, its reality was sought not in the object, but in the quality, which could be verbalized out of its form. The sacred to the Aztec was of an order entirely different from the average man. It needed only a mask to free it from its matrix and give it individual definition for all men to see and declare. But once each deity had been so defined, it then stood discrete and alone. So that gives us a start. Little anecdote like that. I had finished my BA in art school or college like that, and in the interim like that, myself and some other students went to Mexico, for me for the first time, to the city of Mazatlan. And there, that is very significant. For me, in person there, that had such an initiatory effect in me as an artist and an art student that when I had returned back to Berkeley, I initiated a whole new series of paintings for my application into graduate school, which followed there. So this equinox that happened this past week, its landfall was in Mazatlan. Mazatlan, Mexico, was its port of entry into that. Mazatlan means the place of the deer, Mazatl here. And so we go up here, I do have the deer to represent that. And so this event of the sun was actually passing through that part of Mexico here. So here is my painting. This is my painting for this eclipse of the sun. And at the top you'll see the shape of a bird. In Mexico, the sun is also symbolized by the eagle. So in this painting, that would be the eagle, the sun here. And then the bipolar part of this, just to start that, you go over here to the side of the painting here. This is a mask from West Africa, moon masks, and you can see that she has a beard. In Africa, or that part of Africa, the ancestress or goddesses or anybody of chief importance, a woman, is going to have a beard. So this is one way of showing the bipolar. That the bipolar there in this cultures were not separated as it has happened in the patriarchal cultures. And so we have the, you see, the bipolar wholeness of the female in this mask. That's what I'm mainly showing there. And here, we just go below it here. This is a petroglyph. I think I found it in Nevada here. And so you're seeing the moon. Here's just the crescent on her head. And with the crescent bow is shooting an arrow into the sun, figured, the way it's figured with little horns on his head. So that's a very good illustration of that there. And right over next to it here, that I have this, my creation here of the moon. Because as I watched this solstice event taking place, the moon, where we're usually seeing the bright side of the moon, is not, is dark. So she's veiled. She's veiled, and the sun is shining on the other side of her, away from our vision. So this is another example of the bipolar of this event here. And all of this was initiated also for me, little anecdote here, that last week, just before the solstice, we were walking around Choyas Lake here, and there is a delineated path there at the east end of it. And right on that path there was a great big black bullfrog. And we stopped and looked at this quite large, the largest bullfrog I have ever seen there. He looked like he was just sitting there, but with a little prodding, Claudia found that he must have been very recently deceased. And so eventually she picked him up and put him down by the water. So it turned out, as the eclipse, was going to follow the next day, then I had this realization. This is what I consider an affirmative omen from my sponsor, that this was definitely hooked up, was definitely working there. And so the bullfrog in Cherokee is the way that the eclipse, as we're calling it here, is described. That is, that the bullfrog is swallowing the moon. No, the bullfrog is swallowing the sun. That's what it is. And the shape of this bullfrog was very, very round here. And you can go all the way over to the side over there. I'll use this. This is my illustration of this event. This is the bullfrog here, and he's called Kunununu. Kunununu is that, and he swallowed the sun, and this sun is in the figure of Galunlati. Galunlati is like the in person, the intelligent energy from the sun. And so this is Galunlati, or in Mayan it's called Hunapka'u here. And so all that's going on here, from his eyes, he is projecting a scene. The teachings of Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan is referred to throughout his books, as the sorcerers of ancient Mexico. So all this does also take place in Mexico. The Mayans in Mexico and the Cherokee share a common ancestor in some long ago time, and there is a transmission, Coyote, that comes through that for both sides, for Cherokee and a Mayan here. So if Don Juan, the forest teacher of Carlos Castaneda, was indeed a Yaqui, the Yaquis were also in Yucatan with the Mayans, and some of the Yaquis in Arizona are Mayans. So they do go together, but anyway, here he is projecting his seeing, meaning by the shift of his eyes, as Don Juan calls it, he can change the perception. And here below you see these triangular shapes. These are the Achilles triangles on the temple of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, in Chichen Itza, that at the spring equinox, on the steps coming down from the side of the pyramid, will be these shapes, and which culminate in the head of a serpent. And this is the 7 energies that is all through the Mayan and through the Cherokee, the 7 energies in our bodies and so forth. And all of this is taking place here. You see this circle. This is called in Mayan Ol, O-L, and it stands for knowledge, consciousness, spiritual knowledge, anything to that effect, there. And the light of enlightenment we call a season. Season is the light of enlightenment here. So you can see all this is taking place here in my drawing of this event of the bullfrog and the sun, and what is all the consciousness that's taking place in this event. And while I'm just showing this circle, you can come over here to this standing alongside of me. This is a Cherokee sun shield. So you see these circles, these are the O, and this sun shield is something that I hold up to the sun to absorb the solar energy. That solar energy is called Coyote. Coyote is the energy coming into this, and that these circles are another way of saying the knowledge or the consciousness. A person who has taken this in is called swallowed, that you are swallowed by the serpent, you're swallowed by the frog, you're swallowed by knowledge here. And that's what's going to be coming out as an enlightened person, the word season here. So we can see how all of that works here. Other indications for this, I came all the way down here to the bottom. You see that I've made this display here of the frog and the eclipse. This frog is a pottery frog. It was made by Annie Fields over there in Arizona at the Maricopa Reservation. It's made this about 50 years ago when I was there, and it's just south of the village of Guadalupe. So this is my illustration actually for the frog who is smoking a cigarette and the eclipse here. Other illustrations that I have for this, if you come over here and you see this piece here, this is a Cherokee carved stone pipe, and the pipe is called Kanunawa. So the frog is Kanunu, and the pipe is called Kanunawa. And it's about 2,000 years old. My mentor in Cherokee was a pipe maker, and I have quite an inheritance because these pipes are very, very rare. And you see these pearls here. These are freshwater pearls from the Ohio River. And we're way over the other side here. Here is another 2,000-year-old Kanunawa pipe. This is called a platform pipe. So the big one needed a stem on it, but this one is complete in itself. You smoke it right there. Then over here on the other side, here's another frog piece. This is pre-Columbian from Mexico, southern Mexico, and it's made in the form of a whistle here. So in Spanish at least, rana. This would be rana here. So we can see all of these artifacts here. When you want to go all the way up there, here's an old mask that I brought back from Mexico. Very, very interesting. It's a snake, a serpent. And the serpent here in Mexico is the solar substance of the sun. So this solar substance of the sun is very, very thorough, I would say, throughout Mexico forever, like that. And here's a recent piece from Mexico of the sun. I really like, how it's all been painted so that the sun still has, a lot of recognition in Mexico. And right below it here is a small replica of what they call, the Aztec sunstone, the Aztec calendar stone. And here is in the center is the sun, the fifth sun. So sometimes they give a whole explanation of this, but the sun, has a very important part, throughout Mexico. And again, all of the culture in ancient Mexico is, fairly in the bipolar, a dichotomous, dual, and so forth here. And here, right below it, I have this carved wooden frog. It's from Indonesia. What I like is that he's playing, looks like he's playing a saxophone. And I think that this was a way of showing you could make a sound come out of a saxophone, a bass saxophone, that might be taken for a frog. So that's why I have him in here in this way. So all of the things that have taken place in Mexico also was myself. What brought me there as a college art student, the influence, the impact, the initiation of it all kept going for me. And I did have an occasion to stay with a native Zapotec family in Mexico City, and then we all together, traveled to Oaxaca. And there yesterday, Claudia and I were in Balboa Park, and there was a woman who was selling, a little box full of different kind of Mexican jewelry. And we got this, from her here. And Claudia asked her, where in Mexico are you from? And she said, from Oaxaca. So I thought that was very significant, to have this be from Oaxaca. I was with these people who were native to Oaxaca, and we went to the village where the Señor was actually born, and it was the village of Michoacán, and it turned out that was, at that time, the Eclipse Center. And that was a fabulous experience, and I did a lot of art there and had a lot of experience that has stayed with me ever since. So that's all a part of what I'm presenting here as more of the event of the eclipse of the sun. The sun is in this the one time that it is appearing with a crescent. Like the moon we always see in a crescent, but here's the time we see the sun in a crescent. And the exchange between the sun and the moon, to speak in plain language, like that, all of this is a bipolar event, for it. So there's a lot that we can imagine and render out of this event in Mexico. So again, the port of entry for the eclipse was Mazatlan, and as it moved sort of northeastwards across Mexico and into the United States all the way up to the East Coast. But here in San Diego, we were able to observe it. We have a special raised wooden deck out and back here that we could be sitting rather aloft to watch this wonderful event. And to sort of bring this all together, I want to ask Claudia to come up and read a poem that I just really like, that's in this. There is similarities of ancient Egypt and ancient Mexico that is noticeable to someone who might be acquainted with both ancient cultures. And that's going to have something to do with the poem that she's going to introduce and read to you.
This poem is by Thomas James, and it's a persona poem, and you will see that the voice is of the mummy of Lady Djemutesenek. Mummy of Lady Djemutesenek, 21st Dynasty. My body holds its shape. The genius is intact. Will I return to Thebes? In that lost country, the eucalyptus trees have turned to stone. Once, branches nudged me, dropping swollen blossoms, and passion flowers lit my father's garden. It is still here, that place of mottled shadow, the scarlet flowers breathing in the darkness. I remember how I died. It was so simple. One morning, the garden faded. My face blacked out. On my left side, they made the first incision. They washed my heart and liver in palm wine. My lungs were too dark fruit. They stuffed with spices. They smeared my innards with a sticky unguent and sealed them in a crock of alabaster. My brain was next. A pointed instrument hooked in through my nostrils, strand by strand. A voice swayed over me. I paid no notice. For weeks, my body swam in sweet perfume. I came out scoured. I was skin and bone. They lifted me into the sun again and packed my empty skull with cinnamon. They slit my toes. A razor gashed my fingertips. Stitched shut at last, my limbs were chaste and valuable, stuffed with a paste of cloves and wild honey. My eyes were empty, so they filled them up, inserting little nuggets of obsidian. A basalt scarab wedged between my breasts replaced the tinny music of my heart. Hands touched my sutures. I was so important. They oiled my pores, rubbing a fragrance in. An amber gum oozed down to soothe my temples. I wanted to sit up. My skin was luminous, frail as the shadow of an emerald. Before I learned to love myself too much, my body wound itself in spools of linen. Shut in my painted box, I am a precious object. I wear a wooden mask. These are my eyelids, 2 flakes of bronze, and here is my new mouth, chiseled with care, guarding its ruby facets. I will last forever. I am not impatient. My skin will wait to greet its old complexions. I lie here till the world swims back again. When I come back home, the garden will be budding. White petals breaking open, clusters of night flowers, the far-off music of a tambourine.
Oh,